Welcome everyone on this beautiful sunny day. I'm back at the SB box number 1, and I've brought you something really nice. You know, I have a bit of a wheel brush fetish. And how does that manifest? Quite simply, I have created a huge table for you with all the important information on the topic of size. What kind of brush head is on top? Microfiber, is it soft or hard? How much can it be compressed? You can find all of this in this large overview table. That's why I always make sure to test new wheel brushes directly when they come out. And today I have a very special kit with me from CarPro. Let's take a look at it. It contains 2 different wheel brushes. Before we get started here with the SB box, let's quickly switch live to my twin brother in the hall. He will now show you all the important measurements. You unpack it together and take a close look at the wheel brush in detail. Then we are back here at the SB box and test it directly on the wheel. Have fun, let's get started, and then we'll take another look at the whole thing. Everything is already unpacked. The packaging is very, very large. Also impressive because this has not been seen with wheel brushes before. There are large wheel brushes, but with the scope and versatility, it is truly unique for me. I think it's very, very cool, and I was immediately interested, so I bought it right away at Wash Guru, and it arrived here directly. You can also see on the back the entire described flat and the spot variant. We'll take a look at that shortly, as well as a soft attachment and these mild attachments here. I have to say, I was really curious, how do the 2 attachments differ in terms of friction effect? When you touch it like this, you can feel that it's somehow really scratchy or something. That's why I definitely have to test this right here for you. Let's start with these 2 in the original version with the soft attachments. You can see that there is 1 flat and 1 spot. In terms of length, I will give you all the measurements now, approximately 50 cm. The head lengths are also relatively similar. The spot is a bit longer. I don't know if that's intentional, but you can really see here that it's a tad longer. But overall, a nice length. You can reach very far into the wheel. You have very nice long microfiber heads, made entirely from a very, very soft fiber in a mix of orange and white. This means we can easily spot dirt. And you can already tell I am really into this topic because I have compared so many wheel cleaners. We will also incorporate them into the large table afterwards, score them, and take a look at the whole thing. Where do they fit in a bit? What I also find great is that everything has actually been thought of that a wheel brush should have. A nice soft grip and even a hole for hanging. This little sign here so it doesn't accidentally hit the wheel with your hands. Just like here with the spot variant. How does it differ? This whole thing is flat and wide, as you can see here. And this is just very much like a completely round, elongated pen. There are also a few wheel brushes that are similarly designed, but here CarPro has simply packed it into a kit and it works very, very well. However, I noticed one thing here, namely that the sign on the spot variant is very, very loose. Here with this variant, you can now slide it over. At any point, there is absolutely no problem at all. When you work with the brush here, you can already see that it slides completely along this rod. The hole is a bit too large. It could have been made a little tighter so that this whole thing can be pushed forward depending on where you want to push it. But here, it really just slides back and forth. I don't find that very nice, just a small point. Now let's move on to the 2 other pads. First of all, it's cool that something like this is included at all. For both wheel brushes, you also have an alternative cover. No replacement cover, but an alternative fiber here. This one has a bit higher friction. You can also notice that when you look at the fibers, you have this mix of soft microfiber, very nice volume, but you also have this scrub fiber included, and it really looks like a 1-to-1 match. Here you can see these small white fibers on the inside, and this is the phase that we also know from the scrub pads. Even when you touch it here, you can feel that they are a bit sharper, a bit harder. This means that you use these attachments, for example, here is a small lint on it. You use these attachments when you're dealing with wheels that haven't been cleaned in a very, very long time, where you simply need much more mechanical power without having to switch to a wheel brush that might be made of nylon. And I really find it unique, so big compliments to CarPro for including such an alternative cover. The whole thing costs around $40 to $42, and you get all of this included. We'll look at the points and table later. Now let's jump back to the SB box. I'll show you how it works in action, and then we'll meet here again for the conclusion. First, I pour the rest of the CarPro lift into the wash bucket. There's really just a little bit left here, and I'm not measuring an exact amount, just pouring it in. This is really the very last bit. I'll foam this up a little more directly with the bottle. And then, we will have emptied the CarPro lift as well. As you have already seen with the wheel brushes, there are 2 different covers. Let's start with the flat variant, which actually corresponds to a regular wheel brush, in terms of the standard shape that we know. Now let's take a look at how this fits here. So here, you can easily get in between these very standard wheels, even into the wheel well. I'll show you this again on the BMW. We have significantly less space there, But here on the other BMW, the E model, it works really well. You can get in wonderfully between them. 2001. I intentionally didn't spray the wheel again beforehand so that you can see the dirt a little better. You can clearly see the dirt residues on the cover here. And that lets you know, okay, my pre-cleaning was successful, or maybe I need to pre-clean a bit more intensively next time. So that works very well. It always splashes back here, not up front. That's a common misconception. Normally it comes from the back to protect your fingers, and that works well too. But the wheel brush is so long that it normally doesn't even reach the area where you can get your hands close to the spokes or the wheel in general, because then you're already looking at about 8 to 10 centimeters sticking out at the back of the wheel. This means you actually need to reach further than that. Let's rinse this out a bit. I should have added a bit more water. But as you can see, it rinses out nicely here as well. So this works really well and absorbs water nicely. And then you can go back in here and clean the remaining areas. Again, overall, the handling of this wheel brush is really very good. The flexibility is also well done. So overall, I find this flat variant to be really good. Now let's take a look at the spot variant. The rod here is a bit thinner. What I've noticed is that while it is flexible here, the head at the front is not as nicely flexible as in the flat version here. It bends better here at the spot. Perhaps it's intentional that it is a bit more robust, so it doesn't bend nicely here at the front. But maybe that's exactly how it's intended, so you can get into these gaps with it, depending on how you want to use it. So you have the option to simply say, okay, I want the flat version, or I want this round, so to speak, spot version. And there is also the possibility to get in here with the nuts or screws, depending on the situation. It really works well with this. The sign here can be easily moved and stays nicely on this pole. With the spot variant, I noticed, do you see this here? That is very... That hole is a bit too wide, punched out. I hope you can see it a bit here. Do you see this? It slides back and forth relatively quickly. In the future, it might be necessary to improve this a bit by making this hole a little tighter, because it tends to slip very quickly. That means when I clean here and slide the wheel brush over the inner side of the wheel, do you see what happens to the shield? It slides inward. And that's one point. It's always these little things that make me think, Capco, why didn't I try this earlier? Because look here, it's slipping now and hitting against the spokes all the time, and you're basically rubbing it over here the whole time. That means it would be cool to maybe wrap a small, very small mini cable tie around it, because you can't really get close to it anyway, since you are so far away from the wheel. So if you use a small cable tie to keep the sign secured, you won't cause any damage. Just a little life hack tip here. Make a little cable tie here so it doesn't slide back and forth anymore because it's a bit too loose. Do you see it here? Let's quickly return to the flat. In here, I have already shown you that you can also remove the cover, change it, and wash it. What I've noticed here with the flat is that the cover slips off the shield relatively easily. I've also worked with it a bit now. It hasn't happened yet, but I fear that if you have very tight spaces and get stuck somewhere here, the cover will practically get fixed, and then you'll pull the sign out from here. We'll take another look at that with him shortly. Here with the E, nothing happens with the 17-inch wheels. You don't get stuck anywhere. So that definitely works, and it doesn't pull it down either. Only when you really fix this a bit here, and it gets stuck somewhere and you pull too hard, will it slip out. This is because the small holding tabs are missing here. It's just a smooth surface. They should have added some small tabs here so that it can grip a bit, because we already have the principle with the spot variant. You can see here that the sign has slipped forward again. In the spot variant, if you pull it a little free here on the inside, do you see that? Here you have this small stopper again, and it prevents the cover from being pulled down. And you would have needed to implement a kind of holding mechanism for the larger version as well. It's important that you pull it over properly afterwards, because if you do it like this now, it will slip down. You need to pull it far enough over here so that it practically jumps over. And then you see here, it is really tight. You can't just pull it down like that. So here, for the spot variant, this is a small downside, and for the flat variant, this is a small downside. However, we also have the other covers on hand, so let's take a look at those as well. Here we have the flat one, and also a spot variant. We'll also drill into the cover here. Whoever is now saying, oh God, Sebastian, is this somehow totally scratchy? Let me tell you something. You can definitely feel the difference in terms of softness. So this is definitely a bit more abrasive, but it won't scratch your wheels in any way. I might use this if you have a vehicle with really dirty wheels and where you first need to establish a basic cleaning condition. You can work with the cover for that. I think that's really cool. I haven't seen this with any other manufacturer so far, that I have a changeable cover included here, which has a different thickness. We know about interchangeable covers, but the fact that there are different thicknesses gives CarPro another plus point with me. I'm just going to dive in here as well. It glides absolutely effortlessly. It's just a bit, I would say, like a kind of scrub pad on the wheel. But it's not like it causes any damage or anything. It's not that strong. However, it definitely has a higher abrasive performance. CarPro still refers to it as mild. It's not a scratch sponge or anything like that. And we have the same thing here. Again with the same attachment for the Spot variant. We are now testing both of them here on my wheel on the M because we have significantly larger brake discs and the space between the brake caliper and the wheel is also much narrower. Let's start with the flat variant. Just a dry run here very carefully. It fits perfectly long. Here. Many wheel brushes already struggle with that. It fits in here without any problems. Absolutely relaxed. We don't need to test the back because we have the larger brake system in the front. So we limit that here at the front as well. Now let's go over here, where the brake caliper is. And I have to say it works absolutely perfectly. It slides together nicely and it performs great all the way through. Very few wheel brushes can handle this brake system here with me. So it's absolutely top notch. It gets a bit tight up here, but it still manages to get through. So this works perfectly here. It's absolutely fine. And this is the most important point here with the Spot variant. You can see that it just barely fits through here, but it is already a bit tighter. And here, it definitely fits through as well. So the size definitely works as well. This narrow variant here is fine. Yes, but you can definitely tell it's a bit tighter, so be careful here. What I want to test with you now is what happens if the cover gets a bit stuck here. I'm going to try to provoke that. So if you pay a little attention, it works fine. It doesn't slip out of this cover, but as you can see here, you really need to be a bit careful. Just a tip. However, as mentioned, it's not a major drawback. Just keep an eye on it. I think for very few people it will be so narrow that it gets stuck in here, but I want to mention it. So here on my wheels as well, both variants would be wonderfully usable for me here, especially for these holes where the two can fit in. And that wasn't so easy here because, of course, it's a set. One could now firmly say, okay, these are two wheel brushes that we need to take together, but then we simply cannot get them in the individual ranking and also cannot include the individual values here in the table. That's why I did it this way. By simply halving the price and starting from a $21 mark. And the two back here would also get the 3 points. But I also added an exclamation mark so you can see clearly, okay, here attention, the set price for 2001, and also regarding the point of additional cover, we normally don't have a replacement cover that we can buy separately, but we have included an alternative cover right away. And that's why both of them get an extra point here for the availability of the cover. I actually found that quite fair, which is why I included both items here. And here they score 18 points in the flat variant and 16 points in the Spot variant. And I think it fits nicely into the whole scoring as well, because the characteristics reflect that exactly. You all have the values and points included again in the table with the current data. I will then remove this color marking after about 3 or 4 days because then they are simply included. Now, just for you as a novelty here, that's why this is an update from June 6th, very, very fresh. And there you can choose exactly what you need. So the top performers remain the top performers. The top 5 wheel brushes stay in their positions unchanged, but this is also justified. The points reflect this one-to-one here. So, and with that, my final conclusion, you have seen where these brushes rank. They have definitely landed in a good upper field. Just a few small things like the slightly looser shield or the fact that the cover tends to slide off the blade relatively quickly when it gets a bit tighter, you definitely need to pay a bit of attention to that. It would have definitely been nice if we had this here, which is why I'm showing it this way, as it was done here at ChemicalWorkz, where we have these little hooks on the sign USAND. You can really see a bit of the difference in experience here, although I would have thought that CarPro would go a bit more into the details and say, yes, we definitely need to pay attention to this, because here you just can't get the cover off. It gets completely stuck. When you work here, it can really go quickly that you pull this down from this sign. Can we just pull it from the front now? I'll pull it from the front. So, be a little careful. This only happens, and it's not an extreme criticism when it gets stuck somewhere and I try to pull it out forcefully. Then the cover gets stuck in the wheel. Not cool either. Just make sure it fits in terms of size. Otherwise, it can be pulled off quite quickly. And I believe that if you use it for a while, the rubber bands at the back will stretch a bit, making it even easier to happen. So you see, it comes off very, very quickly. Here's a small criticism, the sign. Here's a small criticism that the cover can be removed so easily. So just be careful. Otherwise, it's a nice overall package. And considering the price when looking at the whole package, it's absolutely reasonable. I hope I was able to provide you with comprehensive feedback or a review of these products. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I can gladly test more if you have any specific requests. Otherwise, I think I have made it very comprehensive with all possible data and facts and organized it into the table. We know where the wheel brushes are, and you have also seen them on 2 different wheels. Thank you for watching. I love wheel brushes. Testing, comparing, measuring is somehow really fun for me. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. Always happy. Thumbs up, don't forget to subscribe. If you have a cool wheel brush that you think should definitely be included in your table, then let me know. I'd love to check it out. Take care, see you in the next video. Bye guys.